As we reported, this is a transition of power unlike any we have ever seen. To help us understand what's happening, I'm joined by David Marchick. He is the director of the Center for Presidential Transition. It's a nonpartisan group that helps presidents and candidates prepare for the next administration. Dave Marchick, thank you very much for joining us again. How unusual is what is going on right now in terms of compared with other transitions?
Thanks for having me, Judy. There have been peaceful transitions of power for 223 years. This is a very unusual transition. This is not like the year 2000, when one state, 537 votes, determined the outcome of 270 electoral votes. Here, there's a very, very wide margin. The outcome is clear, as President George W. Bush said, and the transition should be moved forward.
Well, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. And I had posed this question to Ben Ginsburg because you hear Republicans saying, we gave Al Gore 37 days back in 2000. Why can't we do the same thing this time? You're saying they're just different situations.
The factual circumstance is entirely different. The law that governs what the GSA administrator does requires her to make a decision when the outcome is clear. This year, there are 4 states that Vice President Biden, President-elect Biden, has won, where he's above the margin of victory by very, very significant amounts. The likelihood of a recount actually changing the outcome is almost zero. He would need to lose both Pennsylvania and Georgia. He would need to win both Pennsylvania and Georgia. He's up by almost 50,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Judy, in the last 20 years, there have been 31 statewide recounts. Only 3 have changed the outcome. And the largest delta, which led to a change, was some 200 votes. So the outcome's clear, and the country needs this transition to go forward.
Well, explain to us why it makes a difference, because some people are saying, well, he doesn't really take office until January 20th, the new president. What's the rush? Why does it matter?
Well, it matters for our national security, for our economic security, and most importantly, to combat the COVID. Let's go back to the year 2000. President Bush, then Governor Bush, had a shortened transition. He only got about half the number of people in their seats by day 100 as President Obama did 8 years later. When the 9/11 Commission looked back and did an autopsy of what happened on 9/11, they concluded that the shortened transition, that the difficulty of getting national security officials in their seats hurt our national security. Today, we have multiple crises going on: COVID, an economic crisis, a racial justice crisis, a climate change crisis. And the outgoing and the incoming need to work together to solve these problems and collaborate, just as George Bush did and Obama did in the year 2008.
So, Dave Marchick, what exactly is triggered once Emily Murphy, the woman at the General Services Administration, who so far has not certified that Joe Biden is the winner, has not certified that. But once she does, or if it happens, what changes? I mean, what benefits accrue or access is then available to the Biden team?
So there are really 3 things: money, more space, and access to the agencies. Money is not that big a deal. They would like the money, but they have plenty of money. They don't need that much space because we're in a COVID environment and it's a virtual transition. But the critical thing is having the outgoing administration, the career officials in the agencies, and the Biden transition team start to work together on national security issues, on economic issues, on making sure that the vaccine, where we had such an important breakthrough today, can be developed and distributed quickly to 300 million Americans. That work is critical, and it can't start until the transition starts and the outgoing and the incoming work together.
Do you have a sense of whether this administration, below the highest level, below the White House level, understands that Joe Biden has won and is prepared to cooperate and have the transition move forward?
You know, I've been working on this for over a year, and my organization's been working on it for 4 years. What I've seen up until now has been very diligent work from the Trump White House, from the agencies, and from the Biden team. I've been very impressed up until about this point. So, yes, I think people do know. I think people are prepared. People that I talk to want to get going, but the politics are very, very difficult.
Meaning the president?
Meaning,
You're
I
referring
think
to the
that
president?
ultimately they're looking for the signal from the President of the United States, but the Presidential Transition Act does not require a signal from the President of the United States. The law vests that authority with GSA and GSA alone, and the determination is whether the outcome of the election is clear. Yesterday, President George W. Bush, certainly not a fan of the Democrats and certainly not a supporter of Joe Biden, said the outcome of the election is clear. And so that's the trigger for the transition formally starting.
David Marchick with the Center for Presidential Transitions, we thank you.
Thanks for having me.